Joe Budden is crashing out after some familiar faces dropped a hit piece against his podcast, trying to destroy his brand. Now, this entire situation actually started a few days ago when his co-host Mark Lamont and Queen's Flip had a falling out on air that almost led to blows.
Then we good. Now let's get back to the show.
But that's why you saying that?
Because when you say that sucker shit, I take that as disrespectful. And I take that as to me. To me, so I'm trying to tell you.
But there's a lot of shit you say that we take disrespectful before the
and it's not you say that I take disrespectful. I'm not going to talk about it on air because I'm not you.
I'm afraid.
So at the end of the day, I'm not you. This is what you do, and then I'm going to leave you alone. No. Imani, I'm not trying. I'm not potting. I'm not potting. What the fuck is you doing? Are we talking or we potting? We can talk outside or we can pot. Then let's talk outside.
Mark and Flip.
No, don't. F that.
Mark and Flip. It's not.
Every time you get mad, you talk like they p*** and they not.
I didn't call you.
No, you called me a sucker. That's the same shit. Let's talk outside. Stop. I'm not trying to draw. Let's just talk outside.
We can't talk outside.
They can talk outside.
They can't talk outside. No, y'all can talk outside. No, y'all.
I'm talking to outside.
Not outside. You're not in this hallway. Not in this hallway. You're not. Yeah, y'all take that shit up to a project block or somewhere.
Friends of Mark Lamont Hill, aka the bourgeoisie intellectual. Mark Lamont Hill ain't a bourgeoisie intellectual. Like, I think Mark Lamont Hill is a real one. However, there is portion of hip-hop media or black media where it's bourgeoisie black folks, okay? Now, there's a spectrum of them. There are the pseudo-intellectuals. There are the actual intellectuals. There are the iHeartMedia conglomerate puppets, right, where they're at every BET Award show. They are getting every job possible, every gig, and they believe they're better than the independent media. In this case, I would say is the intellectual community, okay? The political analysts, right? The anchors. They're the ones who they believe that Mark Lamont Hill belongs to them. So when they see Mark Lamont Hill acting this way, they believe that Mark Lamont Hill is being ganged up on and is forcing Mark Lamont Hill to act outside of his body because they believe that because Mark Lamont Hill is one of them and he's an intellectual, that he's not supposed to be acting this way, and they blame the Joe Budden podcast, calling it anti-intellectuals, right? Calling it a cesspool. So for starters, their podcast episode is called Joe Budden's Podcast and the Dumbing Down of America. They snapped. Now, one of the first things out of their mouth is comparing the behavior on the Joe Budden podcast to them imitating their oppressor.
And sometimes we can adopt the oppressor's behavior, which brings me to a clip that went viral this week. And that is, of course, of our friend and brother, Mark Lamont Hill. This happened on the Joe Budden broadcast this week. To me, it was clear that his co-host felt small. And, you know, even him saying you use tricky words and Mark responding with, I use words that are tricky to you. And anytime somebody, I think, cannot take to be questioned or responds with a full temper tantrum, it is always about that other person, not about, like, it wasn't Mark. He didn't do anything. And if someone is so small that you can't articulate your point without throwing a temper tantrum or insulting another person, I'm happy that Mark showed both sides, that yes, I'm an intellectual, but don't get up in the studio, you know? And I think it's important for people to see that, yes, you can still be an intellectual and demand your respect. That doesn't make you soft.
If you watch just that 30-second clip, I can somehow see how you draw that conclusion, but this Mark Lamont Hill and Queen's Flip relationship isn't like one-sided Queen's Flip picking on Mark. Mark is not a punk. He's not going to allow that. This has been a back and forth, right? Now, Queen's Flip and Mark, to me, that's just a miscommunication because Queen's Flip wasn't calling Mark a sucker. Mark kind of felt attacked and just went off the rails. From their definition, wouldn't Mark be acting a fool kind of a little bit? Now, I just think it was a miscommunication. Mark felt disrespected. I don't think Queen's Flip was intending to disrespect Mark, even though Queen's Flip saying you use tricky words probably is Queen's Flip feeling a tad bit small at times, but like that happens. Now, her first go around, she kind of was respectful, not really respectful, kind of, but then Angela Rye kind of went a little bit crazy. where like she tells Joe Budden and the rest of the cast that they're not invited up there, that they're not intellectuals.
I don't think that Mark should be left holding the bag in this exchange. I take great issue with that podcast and its treatment of Mark, and I was wondering when he was gonna snap. You know, there's another clip that I don't know if you all saw, where Mark announces very vulnerably that he's lost almost all of his colleagues that were reporting in Gaza. And by lost, I mean they are killed. They died in their reporting and trying to be courageous for their people.
And then around the world, we're seeing violence everywhere, including Gaza, where I work for Al Jazeera. My colleagues, every colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. Every single colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. So we got a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to pay attention to.
That's pretty good.
All right, Young Thug dissed, I get scared every time he do that shit.
He doing so fast. So you gotta
everybody know in Gaza is like,
oh my colleague.
God damn, he doing it again.
That nigga Mark, boy. Why you don't never support him when he start talking that shit? You support him very well, Pizza Hut.
He has my full support, but I also know that once he says something like that or we discuss something like that, then we're just like, okay, what's the fucking pivot? What's the pivot after we talk about every journalist on the Gaza Strip being murdered? Like, what's the pivot?
So Young Thug
there we go.
appeared on Little Baby's project.
Quite the project.
And sharing vulnerably, he's lost all his people. And Joe Budden's transition, not this other guy, I don't know everybody's name, but not this other guy. Joe Budden's transition is like, and Young Thug. Like, just no mention of like, are you okay?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Who was lost this week? How did they die? Just like nothing. So 2 tips point around curiosity. If you can't find curiosity, find sympathy. If you can't find sympathy, find empathy. If you can't find empathy, find compassion. Because if you don't, the person who is in a constant state of grief, at some point that grief turns to rage because there's not a safe container for it. So we say on this show, welcome home, and we mean that. Of course, Mark is welcome anytime. I don't know about the rest of them. So I just want Mark to know I'm praying for you, brother. You know that. And I want better for him. I think that he deserves to hold space with people who are at least more compassionate and more eager to learn from his perspective.
I get what they're saying, and at times it may feel that way. But if you watch the podcast on a routine basis, you understand that the Joe Budden podcast has been really gracious to Mark. Like, they've allowed Mark to teach, to educate them. They've welcomed Mark in with open arms. Like, they don't act weird to Mark on a daily basis. Like, that's like, Mark ain't up there getting picked on and bullied, bro. Like, that's just not a thing. That's something that they've made up in their mind based on that particular clip. It doesn't make sense. Also, Mark Lamont Hill was a free agent at some point. Joe Budden podcast was the only one who gave Mark Lamont Hill a job. CNN ain't want him. So how can you then criticize and critique the man who I believe is paying Mark Lamont Hill 6 figures to speak on a podcast? How can you then critique that man? Right? Like for example, I'm not sure if y'all have the infrastructure to hire Mark, but why y'all? If it's home for, then why y'all didn't give Mark a job? If Mark is so great and perfect, and y'all wanted Mark on your team, you can criticize someone who gave Mark a job. Clearly, they don't have hatred for Mark. Clearly, they appreciate Mark if they're paying Mark to be there. Now, the other chick, Tiffany. So Tiffany Cross came back, and she would even extend it further and say she has no interest in hearing any opinions from people like Queen's Flip. Just diminishing Queen's Flip and everything he has to offer completely.
I'm not saying it's something wrong with engaging the flips of the world. I would never say, Andrew, Bakari, Angela, y'all should not engage the flips. I'm saying I, Tiffany, have no desire to engage the flips of the world. I don't choose to be in a conversation, but that's just not my ministry. I wouldn't be good at it. And I just have no desire. And yes, I do maintain, I do not respect everybody's opinion on everything. And yes, we respect each other's opinion here on most things, but there are some things. I mean, Bakari, if you came to me and was like, oh, your period coming, you got a cramp, this is what you need to do. I'm probably like, what are you basing that on, Bakari? Like, where did you get that from? Like, that's not necessarily your area of expertise. So I might not.
I got that off.
I got that off Instagram. The lady on Instagram said if you eat steak when your period starts. I'm just telling you what the lady on Instagram told me.
Listen, depending on how bad the cramps are, I might listen to his ass. So I'm sorry.
When you're desperate, you're desperate. But I hear that so often that people are like, oh, well, I got a hunch. Or I got it off Instagram, or I saw it on TikTok, or I know for a fact. Well, how do you know for a fact? And then more often people told me, because so-and-so told me, then you don't know for a fact. If you didn't talk to the source, then you don't know something for a fact. So I don't respect everyone's opinion. I have no desire to engage.
Joe Budden will respond back pretty viciously. Now, in his response, he will call them Charlamites. If you guys don't know what a Charlamite is old JPP terms, right? So back in the day when Joe Budden and Charlamagne was actually beefing, Joe Budden would kind of call the crew like the orbiters of Charlamagne the God. He would call them Charlamites, right? Those are people who probably come on the Breakfast Club here and there or Brilliant Idiots here and there. They're like in Charlamagne the God's crew. Angela Rye is a Charlamite. So when Joe Budden kind of hears the critiques of Angela Rye, he kind of hears it as, oh, you only dissing me because me and Charlamagne don't get along. And that's his perspective, okay? So Joe Budden starts off by kind of sunning Angela Rye, letting her know that he don't care about her, like not inviting them on the show or her disinviting them because he would never be in the same room as her. Like, he is too accomplished.
My acceptance of her non-invitation becomes relevant, right? Like Angela Rye, I can assure you, like, I've got over 25 years in this business. I can assure you if you and I are in the same place, it's a mistake on my part. Like, I'm all for people saying who's invited and uninvited places, so I ain't mad at it. But we would never be in the same space. You, quote-unquote, intellectuals seem to be pulling a lot from places that, again, like it said, you admittedly know very little about. It just comes off away.
Yeah,
it comes off away.
It's like if you put,
especially when you pretending to especially when you pretending to do all of this super black kumbaya. I got a problem with that too. Mm-hmm. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super black, all for the people, and I'll be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we are alike. We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. I don't give a fuck about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully. I don't come on here and say a word about any of that shit. I expect reciprocity. You could have titled that clip totally different.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Don't claim to be super pro-black and then take the #1 black urban podcast and put that type of stink on it because you think you got a friend over here. That don't give you a license.
I don't think it's that. I don't think if Mark was here or not. I think
if Mark was here, they would never have those conversations.
No,
they're having those conversations because their friend is up here.
No, they're having those conversations because Mark is deemed an academic and an intellectual, which you are.
Well, he is, not deemed,
No,
he is.
No, I said what you are. So now it's, yo, why is he even there? Mm-hmm. Like Angela Yee said, yo, Mark, just come home.
Angela Rye.
Angela Rye said, Mark, just come home.
That's the other beef.
But then you go on to say how diverse Mark is. So I think that that's an insult because you don't put Mark in a box. Mark is home. Mark is a black man sitting in a room with black men that grew up in similar circumstances, albeit we wasn't all in the court. You can't say he's not home. We all had
our own walks of life.
Yeah, dog. Like I just disagree with that shit.
Thank God there was a black-owned, independent media company there to pick up our good brother when he was misunderstood by other outlets.
Talk about it.
Why is that part not being said by pro-black native land people? I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
Mark was a free agent. Y'all had a chance to bring him home.
And didn't.
You didn't.
That's a good point.
So don't sit up on your platforms all pretentious as one of the Charlamites. That's how I know you. I know you as one of the Charlamites and get to saying what Mark should and shouldn't be doing. Please. If you didn't discuss this podcast before, if by your own admittance you know very little about it, the woman Tiffany said at least 5 times that she don't give a fuck about these other opinions. All I'm asking is that you act like it.
Also, if I'm Mark Lamont Hill, because he's the center of the attention here, I'm looking at this two ways, but I'm leaning towards one way or another. I see friends sticking up for me, but once I hear friends talk about, oh, you shouldn't be over there, they're not good for you, and I look up and I say, wait, hold on, this the only people who offered me a job? Hold on, they pay me this. Hold on, this the most popular black podcast on earth? Hold on. You don't want me to be on this podcast? And you my friend? Hold on, bruh. Hold on, man. Something ain't right here. Now, has Mark Lamont Hill ever got, I don't know, an invite to be a permanent host on their pod? I don't know. Because when Mark Lamont Hill got fired, Mark Lamont Hill was on YouTube doing 300 views and he was kind of stuck in between. Mark Lamont Hill is an intellectual with a lot of offer who's super smart, but Mark Lamont Hill isn't quite, like somebody who is well-versed in creating a YouTube channel, right? In the production, in different things you need. Like, he's not well-versed. He's a creator. He wants to like make content and educate. He don't really know about the crux of how to grow. So he was stuck. Joe Budden gave him a lifeline, and now you guys are telling him, man, you shouldn't be over there, man. They don't value you. So where should he go? The Native Land podcast or CNN? Where should he go? Because CNN fired him. Let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this video and you want to make videos of your own, I wrote a full book on how to grow on YouTube really fast. Like, I've made $90,000 in 28 days, so I know what I'm talking about. And I give game that nobody is talking about, nobody knows. These are like growth secrets that I personally applied to grow, and I want to show you how to do it. So if you are interested, the link is in the description, as well as one-on-one consultation and a chance to win a free consultation. You can click a link as well in my description. I pick one subscriber every month and mentor. So, if you enjoyed this video and you also want to see another dope video, click on this video right here where Stephen A. Smith exposed himself really badly. I'm going to see you guys in this video. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.